My wife lied, cheated, and tried to run me over with her car. Now she's broke, alone, and watching me rebuild my life. Without her, I got married in January 2020. I was 22 years old at the time, and Y was 21. We got married in secret only. Our close friends knew. At that time, we were both living on campus at our university in Miami, away from our hometowns and families. As soon as we got married, everything turned into a toxic nightmare to start with. She was secretly texting her ex-boyfriend from high school, who we'll call Jay. She claimed they were just friends now, but that never sat well with me, especially since he was also the first person she had ever been with. I'm not the type to go through someone's phone because I wanted to trust her, but she started doing everything she could to hide her phone screen from me. Anytime I touched her phone, she'd completely lose it. Eventually, I figured out her passcode and checked her messages, but I couldn't find any proof to confront her with. Fast forward to March 2020, when the pandemic hit, and everyone was forced to move back home. We were in a strange spot since we still hadn't told our families about the marriage, so we wore our rings in secret. Everything seemed fine until the first week of April 2020, when out of nowhere, she said she wanted a divorce. It shattered my heart to hear those words. I broke down crying, begging her to stay. I kept asking where I went wrong, or if I hadn't done enough for her. She just said she didn't love me anymore and that she wasn't the one for me. For about a week, I did everything I could to save our marriage. I was completely at her mercy, trying to make it work, but she was incredibly stubborn. At the end of that painful week, I finally accepted that she didn't want to be with me anymore. It was tough, but I figured it was better not to drag things out any further. I only asked her to return the wedding rings I gave her, but she refused, saying they were a gift and she had every right to keep them. Legally, she may have been correct, but I didn't think she deserved to keep them since we weren't staying together. The rings were real, and I was on a 3-year payment plan for them, having only made payments for 4 months so far. We argued about it over the phone, and eventually, I hung up and cried alone in bed. My mom asked what was going on. I finally broke down and told her everything. She held me in her arms and told me it was going to be okay. The next day, we both went to Y's house and told her mother the truth. Things turned into an argument between our moms, while Y stayed upstairs, refusing to see me. Instead, she kept texting me, asking what the hell I was thinking by involving our families. Eventually, our mothers agreed the rings would be returned to me, but on a different day. 2 days later, while I was at work, I got a call from Y. She was crying, saying her mom was kicking her out because of the secret marriage. She told me she still loved me and wanted to give us another chance. She agreed to cut off Jay and said we should move in together and live like a real married couple. Being the lovesick fool I was, I rushed out of work to meet her. We immediately started apartment hunting nearby. I managed to find us a place that was fairly cheap because of the pandemic, with a move-in date just 3 days away. When I got home and told my parents the news, my mom was furious. She said I was making a huge mistake and needed to really think it through. My dad was disappointed, but told me it was my life and my decision. Over the next few days, my friends helped me pack and move my stuff. I barely spoke to my parents during that time. It was especially heartbreaking for my mom. Seeing her so hurt crushed me. On our first day in the new apartment, it finally felt like our marriage was turning a corner. I was starting to feel that same joy I once had before she ever mentioned divorce. But it didn't last. Just a few weeks later, after a night out for drinks, I checked her phone, and there they were. Messages between her and another ex. Let's call him E. The texts went all the way back to when she first asked for the divorce. My legs nearly gave out. She was passed out on the bed, but I woke her up by splashing water on her and immediately started screaming. She was still tipsy and confused, but I was beyond furious and yelled at her for 2 to 3 hours straight. At one point, I demanded she leave. As she started sobering up, she began lashing out, swinging at me, chasing me around the apartment, actually punching me a few times and scratching at me. I'm not a violent person. I took the hits and locked myself in the bedroom, just to keep her away from me. She broke down crying and dropped to her knees, begging me to forgive her. She kept saying she'd do anything to fix things. We ended up arguing and then slowly talking through the door. Eventually, we both calmed down and went to bed. It was around 4 a.m. by then. I didn't sleep at all. When 7 a.m. came, she woke up with only a hazy memory of what happened that night. I yelled at her again, this time with her sober enough to fully understand. She cried and pleaded for me to stay. She said she had nowhere else to go. In that moment, I truly hated her. I felt like she had taken me away from my family, my friends, my whole life. From what I read in the messages, there wasn't anything explicitly physical mentioned, at least in the texts. But there were emotional boundaries crossed. She was calling eBabe and suggesting they make a video together. To me, that was still cheating. After another long argument, Kay told her if she swore nothing ever happened between her and E, then fine, but I better not see her talking to him again. Otherwise, I'd leave for good. She swore nothing physical had occurred, but during the same conversation, I asked if anything had ever happened between her and Jay. She hesitated, then said no. That pause told me everything. It made me want to dig deeper. My gut screamed that this was only the beginning, that more was coming to shatter me. I'll explain more about that later. Following my previous post, it's now May 2020. After I asked if anything happened with Jay, Y reluctantly said no, but in a way that raised red flags. Let me add some context. When we first moved in together in April 2020, I was working full-time at a call center an hour away from our apartment, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. Y wasn't working because her job shut down due to COVID. So, to keep us afloat, I started doing Uber Eats, Postmates, and DoorDash in the evenings, usually from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. after work, or all day on my days off. Also, right after we moved in, she started growing cold. While I was working, she'd send me cute messages telling me she loved me and couldn't wait to cuddle. But when I get home, she wouldn't touch me or even look at me. That's what led me to check her phone and find the messages with E in the first place. Now, it's June 2020, weeks after the blow-up with E at this point. I've started emotionally distancing myself from her. I kept my same routine long, work hours, doing deliveries, and trying to keep up with my college classes online. She still wasn't working. And every time I came home, the place was a mess unless I cleaned it myself. Around this time, she adopted a mini golden doodle. I had brought my own dog, Mozzie, with me when we moved. She used to adore him. But once the new puppy came around, she completely ignored Mozzie, gave him the cold shoulder. Just like me, the following months were just repetition. We went on a few dates and tried to talk, but it always ended in silence. I kept trying to break the ice to see if there was anything left worth saving, but she never opened up. Bit by bit, I felt my love for her slipping away. I started going numb to the way she treated me. Then, in October 2020, something changed. She finally opened up. She apologized for how she had treated me over the past few months. It felt like for the first time we were finally ready to leave all the pain behind and start fresh. Just the two of us against the world. That feeling only deepened the next month when I caught COVID. She stepped up, caring for me with the kind of tenderness you'd hope for in a partner, and in the process, ended up catching it herself. Once I recovered, I returned the favor. After that, something shifted. We began acting like a real married couple. She started taking an interest in my world: video games, anime, art, photography, even tagging along on my late-night delivery runs. We'd vibe to music together, and she'd help with the drop-offs too. We discovered new things about each other, went on dates, and honestly, it felt comforting just being around her again. The spark between us was slowly coming back. But deep down, I still held a secret grudge. It was hard to let go of everything that had happened. Things were going well, until just a few days before Valentine's Day 2021, when I made another devastating discovery. Over the past few months, I had occasionally checked her phone in secret. I never found anything new between her and E, just the same old conversations. But this time, I decided to dig deeper. I looked through her messages with her best friend, the one she would always vent to. Their chats were long, full of gossip, and filled with screenshots. Reading those messages made my heart sink. I found more details about her and Jay. Turns out, she had slept with Jay just a few days before she asked me for a divorce. And that was the real reason she ended things back then. As I kept reading, I found out she and Jay had another conversation in October 2020, supposedly for closure. That was apparently the reason she decided to give our marriage another chance. Strangely, I wasn't even surprised anymore. Woke her up from her nap and calmly confronted her about everything I had just read. She broke down crying, apologizing over and over. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just left the apartment and went for a drive to clear my head. Dark thoughts swirled around in my mind. I felt completely alone. For the next few days, I avoided her entirely. We still shared a bed, but there was no physical contact anymore. Then, on Valentine's Day morning, she nudged me in a playful tone, asking what I had planned for her. Keep in mind, I was beyond exhausted from a full week of work and deliveries. On top of that, my heart was still shattered from what I had just discovered. When she started crying, saying I hadn't planned anything special for her, I snapped. I jumped out of bed and started scolding her, yelling about how insane it was for her to expect anything from me after what she'd done. I told her she didn't deserve a damn thing from me, that our marriage was a complete disaster. Now you're probably wondering why I was still with her. To be honest, I didn't have the strength to do anything else. I was emotionally drained, a complete shell of who I used to be. I used to be full of life, creativity. I'd paint, draw, shoot videos, take photos. I was always chasing the next adventure, but now I felt hollow, like life had lost its purpose. I know it sounds foolish, but at the time, it just felt easier to pretend, easier to hide from the world. We were already so deep into the married life that it felt like there was no turning back. And even though she hurt me more than anyone ever had, I blamed myself for putting my happiness in her hands, for expecting her to make me whole, even as she was breaking me. That doesn't mean I forgave her, not even close. I just became numb. So after that discovery, we fell into yet another stretch of distance between us. Around April 2021, she went to Peru with her grandmother. And honestly, I was relieved to have the apartment to myself for once. I told my friends she'd be gone for a while, and they started coming over more often. They didn't know what I knew, but being around them again made me feel like my old self. We did our usual late-night antics, video games, movie nights, just chilling. I felt that happiness slowly creeping back in, even if it was temporary. At the same time, our lease was ending in May 2021. I started talking to my dad about possible next steps. That same month, my mom traveled to Chicago to spend the rest of the year with some of our family there. My dad suggested that Y and I could stay at their house while he went to join her in Chicago. I agreed. Y didn't seem too thrilled about the plan, but I didn't need her approval. It was either that or stay put and pay twice the rent. So before renewing the lease for another year, I moved back in with my parents in June 2021. Y was still in Peru at the time, but would be returning in a few weeks. For the first time in a while, I felt at peace back in my childhood room, surrounded by everything that reminded me of the creative, carefree version of myself I used to be. I enjoyed those last few weeks of freedom, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't last. When Y finally returned from her trip to Peru, everything started to spiral, and this next chapter nearly cost me my life. Now it's July 2021. Y and I are living at my parents' house. I had just started a new job in sales, and within 2 to 3 months was promoted to a supervisor role. The pay was good enough to afford my dream car. As for our marriage, it stayed relatively steady for the rest of that year. We had some good moments and some bad, but overall, there was still this blank, numb feeling I couldn't shake. I didn't even know how I felt about Y anymore. Was it anger? Sadness? Depression? I couldn't tell. Our relationship just felt like it existed without meaning. By early 2022, there was some sense of reconciliation between us. We started going out on dates again, opened up a bit more, and tried to figure out where we stood. Things seemed okay until May 2022, when my life flashed before my eyes. I had invited some friends over to my parents' place to hang out and watch a boxing match. I let Y know in advance, told her it would just be a few hours, and warned her there might be some yelling since we get pretty into sports. She said she was fine with it. As the fight went on, we got louder and louder. She started angrily texting me, telling me to quiet down. Every time she came out to grab snacks or use the bathroom, she'd slam the door behind her. After the fight, one of my friend's trucks had a dead battery, so I used my car to help jump it. While we were doing that, the four of us chatted for another half hour or so. During that time, Y kept texting me, demanding that I come inside immediately. I texted back, telling her we were finishing up, just as I was about to head back in. She stormed out of the house and walked toward her car. I asked if she was okay, but she had a serious look on her face and angrily shoved me aside. Earlier that year, a dad had installed solar-powered lights in the front yard. The way Y's car was parked, her only way out was through a patch of grass where one of those lights was staked into the ground. She revved the engine, and right before taking off, I stepped in front of the car and tried to stop her from running. Over the light, I asked her what was going on. She paused for about 5 seconds, then slammed on the gas. She nearly ran me over. I jumped out of the way just in time, but the bumper grazed my knee. She sped off, dragging the solar light under, her car scraping it across the pavement. I just sat there on the ground, stunned. My friends rushed over and helped me up, asking if I was okay. I couldn't even speak. I just stared at them, completely in shock. They offered to stay, but I told them to head home. I went back inside, still shaking. I kept calling Y's phone, trying to understand what had just happened. When I got to our room, her phone was on the floor and locked. I hadn't gone through it in months, but in that moment, I did. And what I found made everything click. Turns out, Y and J had been having an ongoing affair from March 2020 all the way to October 2020. 4 months. All while I was working, suffering, and trying to rebuild what I thought was a real marriage. For the first time in a long time, I felt something clear inside me, something that told me what I should have done a long time ago. It was around 2 a.m. and I was still freaking out. I tried calling my sister. She lived just down the road, but she didn't answer. Y eventually came back, trying to unlock the front door, but I had already added an extra lock. I slipped out the back and drove to my sister's house, hyperventilating the entire way. Y followed me. I pulled into their driveway, knocking frantically. On the door, seconds later, Y pulled up behind me. I pounded on the door until my sister and her husband opened up. That was enough to make Y back off. She drove away without saying a word. Inside, I broke down and told my sister everything. I cried in front of her for the first time and finally admitted the truth. Y had been cheating on me since the very beginning. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I was finally ready to let this marriage go. I asked my sister to accompany me back home to make sure Y didn't try to harm me again. When we arrived, Y was already packing her things. I kept my distance for about 5 minutes before calmly asking her to return the rings and the house keys. She seemed to expect this. She already had them in her pocket and handed them over without a word. She grabbed her suitcase, took our golden doodles, and left. My sister and I sat and talked for a little while longer before she finally went home. That night dragged on endlessly. I didn't fall asleep until around 6 a.m., only to be woken up an hour later by loud knocking on my window. It was Y. She had apparently spent the night in her car and was now asking me to at least take the golden doodle back inside. As much as I wanted to help, I ignored her knocking. She kept at it for nearly 30 minutes. Later, I reached out and agreed to meet with her to talk things through. I laid everything on the table, told her what I knew, how long I had known, and how exhausted I was. I told her it was best we separated. She cried and begged me to give us another chance, but I was completely drained. The emotional and physical abuse, the lies, the betrayals, it was all too much, as toxic as it sounds. What happened next actually brought me a strange sense of satisfaction. It felt like karma finally came for her after everything she'd put me through. I know it makes me sound like a jerk in this part, but honestly, I felt like I deserved to laugh just once. Why moved back in with her mom, but it didn't last. She didn't get along with her stepfather and was too prideful to live under her mother's roof again. By August 2022, she had found her own place and told me that if I ever wanted to work things out, I was welcome to move back in with her. My parents returned from Chicago about a week after we separated. Most of the furniture in our bedroom had been hers. She had made me throw away my bed, my dresser, basically everything I owned, because hers looked more sophisticated. Besides the bedroom items, we had a couch, tables, kitchen appliances, and more boxed up in a separate room of the house. The day she said she was coming to collect her stuff, my father and I moved everything out onto the driveway, but we didn't lift a finger to help them load it into the truck. She brought her mom, stepfather, uncle, and 2 aunts. None of them were exactly strong or physically capable. Even her grandma showed up, mostly just to supervise and do what little she could. What had taken my dad and me just 30 minutes to haul out took them nearly 3 hours to load. We watched from the window with a few drinks in hand, laughing quietly to ourselves as they struggled desperately since they were outside, bad-mouthing us the entire time. I didn't understand why they had to involve my family in their gossip. But then again, that side of the family always talked crap about everyone and everything. After she moved into her new apartment, she started a job in her field of study. It paid well hourly, but she wasn't getting enough hours. She had much pride to work a second job because she thought it was beneath her. Because of that, she started falling behind on rent, utilities, car payments, insurance, you name it. She reached out to me several times, asking for money, but I refused. Her financial mess wasn't my responsibility anymore. She even tried to guilt-trip me by saying I shouldn't let our golden doodle suffer just because she was. I told her to go ask her lover for help instead. To my surprise, I later found out she had told her mother the truth about everything, and her mother actually took my side. She told why she wouldn't be giving her any money either. The rest of her family still hated me for not wanting to fix things after she cheated, but I couldn't care less. None of them were married, so their opinions meant nothing to me. Months passed. We were still legally married. Quay agreed to split the cost of the divorce, but she didn't have the money. During those conversations, she admitted she still hoped we could reconcile. She said she still loved me and believed I still loved her back. Call me stupid, but she was right. I did love her deep down. I probably always would. But I also knew I couldn't keep playing this never-ending game. No matter what she had done, it was still hard for me to truly hate her. This was someone I'd grown up with. Someone who stood by me during my darkest moments. Someone who once made me feel a kind of joy I never believed I deserved. And yet, she still managed to break me. Made me feel like I'll never be good enough for anyone again. We still have each other on social media. And even though she claims to be struggling financially, she always seems to be out every weekend, partying at clubs. Those nights usually end with her drunk texting or calling me, saying she regrets how she treated me. Whenever I post something on Instagram or Snapchat about being out late, she's almost always the first to view my story within a minute. She's even told me I look happier without her. And while I wouldn't say I'm exactly happy, I do feel something close to freedom. Since she moved out, she's been in 2 car accidents, just a few months apart. We're no longer on the same insurance plan, but she still called asking me to help her financially. I refused and told her she was on her own now. I'd kept her on my phone plan for a few months after the split, but I eventually cut her line off without telling her. A few days later, she angrily texted me saying she had lost her number and had to buy a new phone because the old one was locked under my carrier. She couldn't call customer service since I was the account holder. She called me a piece of crap. I couldn't help but laugh. There's an ex-girlfriend I had before. Why someone I ended things with on good terms. We stayed friends up until I married Y, who made me cut all contact with her. She was scared my ex might try to rekindle something, so I blocked her. After Y and I split, my ex and I started hanging out again strictly as friends. But when Y found out, she swore the only reason I divorced her was to get back with my ex. The truth is, I had no interest in dating her again. She was just a friend at that point. From what I heard through a mutual friend, Y tried to get back. With Ibute, he's now in a relationship and has a kid. She also reached out to Jay again, who's also dating someone. Sometimes she would reach out to me, telling me she was still behind on bills, barely able to eat, on the verge of eviction, Y sand, struggling to take care of the golden doodle. If I had to guess, her grandmother was probably the one helping her out financially. Y and I would still text from time to time, usually about court dates or to arrange pickup for things she'd left behind. During those conversations, she'd often tell me that she'd never find another guy like me, that she wished we could try again, that she regretted everything she did. Part of me felt a twisted sense of justice in hearing that. The other part felt sad that everything had come to this. Around March 2023, we finally went to court to file for divorce. While we were waiting for our turn, she stepped out into the hall and cried her eyes out. I sat quietly, not even knowing what to feel. 10 minutes later, we were called in. We signed the papers. Since then, we only exchange a few texts here and there once every couple weeks, just saying what's left to be said. As for me, I got promoted to manager about a month after we split. I stayed in that role until November 2022, but I was so overworked, I barely slept. Eventually, I found a better paying job, one I still work at today. During the marriage, I gained a lot of weight. Overeating became my way of coping with depression. Lately, I've been trying to get back into the gym, but I still need to work on building a routine. I have big plans this summer with my friends and for myself. It's now June 2023. Life isn't perfect, but whenever I'm having a bad day, I think about how Y's life has been falling apart ever since we separated. And I can't lie, it makes me feel like maybe she finally understands how I felt for over 6 years. Maybe I'm an idiot for still thinking about her like this, but at least my life is finally heading in the right direction. I just hope it keeps moving forward. Maybe one day she sees how happy I became without her. This will be my last post. Just wanted to clarify a few things I had to cut out from part 4 due to length. If anyone has questions, I'll try my best to answer them. Y and I go way back to our high school days. There's a lot more to our story. How we met, how things evolved, and eventually, how we ended up married. Looking back, the relationship was always toxic, but that doesn't mean it was all bad. We shared some genuinely good moments too. As for how things went when we were just dating and why I chose to marry her, that's a story for another time. If it ever needs telling, I appreciate all the feedback, both good and bad. Like I said before, I was a dumbass who thought everything would magically work out. I don't know if I'd call this a win for me, but at least now, I finally have a chance to start over. To the readers who think this is made up, I don't have the time or energy to invent a story like this. I'm just sharing my experience to get it off my chest. I've never been good at expressing myself in person, and Reddit might not be the ideal place to do it, but reading about others who've gone through similar things has made it easier for me. So thank you for actually taking the time to read all these long posts. Sadly, this wasn't my first heartbreak. There was a relationship before this one that broke me and shaped who I am today. Sounds dramatic, I know, but it's the truth. Maybe I'll share that one day, too. Today, I'm going to court to meet up with my wife. Let's keep calling her Y. She texted me on Monday, June 26th, to remind me we had court on June 30th. Yesterday, she gave me another reminder and also asked for a few items I still had of hers. I asked for a few things too. We still have each other on social media and see each other's stories. I don't go snooping, it just shows up when I'm browsing. Lately, she's been posting texts between her and the same guy, so I'm guessing she's talking to someone new or trying to get into another relationship. I don't think she's doing it to make me jealous. Knowing her, she just loves attention. She did the same kind of thing when she and I first started talking. But I don't feel jealous or angry. Honestly, I feel relieved. Let someone else deal with what I went through. All I can say to the new guy is, good luck. He's gonna need it. As for court, I'm actually excited. I feel like I'm finally closing the last chapter and moving on with my life. Y said that even after the divorce, we could still be friends mostly, because of the golden doodle we had together. As much as I love that dog, I know I need to let go of everything. Once the divorce is finalized, I plan to block her on everything. No more contact. No more updates, no more drama. As for myself, I haven't tried dating again. I don't really have it in me right now. My biggest obstacles are the trust issues and the insecurities I've developed. Every time I've been in a relationship, it's always been the girl who made the first move, including why maybe I should change that. But for now, I'm just focusing on work and paying off my bills. One of my friends is now training me at the gym. So far, I've lost 10 pounds. My friend group and I are going on our summer trip next week. We've got a bunch of stops planned within the state. So yeah, life's been good lately. I'll try to update again after court. Sorry for the late update, then swamped with overtime, but I finally have some time today, so Friday, June 30th, we get to the courthouse and wait to be called in by a clerk. After about 3 minutes, we're called up. There's only one chair available, so I take it. Even without looking at her, I could feel why staring at me. She says, "Can I at least sit down?" I replied, "Then grab a chair." She just scoffs, says whatever, and stays standing. We explain to the clerk that we're filing for divorce. There's no custody, no division of assets, just a straightforward separation. But while the lady was walking away or typing on the computer, Y couldn't help throwing in little remarks. She said things like, "I can't wait to get rid of you," or "You're the one who trapped me in this marriage, and you never satisfied me anyway." Not gonna lie, it sounded petty. But I know she only said that stuff to cover how she really felt. I knew it because, right after, she said something like, "Hope you enjoy being with your ex." Even though I've said 100 times I'm not into her like that. We went back and forth a bit, while the poor clerk did her best not to laugh. We paid the fee, and now we're just waiting on one last court date sometime in the next month or two. It was raining when we walked out of the courthouse, so we stuck around and talked for a bit. The main thing she brought up was whether I could watch our golden doodle in August while she goes on a trip overseas. I told her that wasn't possible for me. She immediately fired back, calling me a deadbeat dog dad, and said I'd never see him again, then stormed off. Here's the kicker. Yesterday, she asked if I could watch the golden doodle today, the 4th of July. I couldn't because I had to work, even though it's a holiday. Oh, and also, today's her birthday. She definitely won't be getting a happy birthday from me. Her family doesn't really celebrate birthdays anyway, especially her mom and stepdad, since they're both Jehovah's Witnesses. Her only real option today is her best friend, but I'm guessing she's busy with her boyfriend, not planning to spend the day babysitting. So yeah, here I am, at work, counting down the 2 more days until vacation. Nothing really new or different since the last update.